is just fantastic.
Tipster. For those who are not already aware, Vaush has released his response to the current controversy. If you'd like to see it, you can check it out at the link below. As for me, I won't be commenting on this subject any further. I've said all I have to say on the subject, and I'd encourage my community to check out his response if you wish to hear directly from Vaush his position on all of this. I want to wrap this up by apologizing to this community, as well as communities adjacent to mine. While my intentions were good in this situation, it has resulted in heinous attacks against this community and the people within it, who I care deeply about, as well as friends whose relationships I value dearly, and their communities as well, and for that I apologize. It was never my intention for any of this to happen, but it's been a learning experience about how my actions affect those around me, and I have taken a serious mental note of that. I take full accountability for how my actions have impacted this community and others. I am genuinely sorry, and I'll strive to do better in the future. Tipster. Included is a link because yes, Vaush, a week removed from the initial controversy itself of Horse and Lolicon on his hard drive, has responded to many of the allegations made against him. The video itself is 1 hour 41 minutes long and is titled The Context Video. It has 18,000 upvotes and 5.2k downvotes, and has at time of recording 250,000 views. He has very kindly put timestamps for relevant topics and arguments that are used against him. For example, the vegan gains debate, the child labour argument, the bad child labour argument. In fact, many clips he goes through and provides what he considers to be a form of debunk or contextual explanation. Just before we get to that though, we should also address Keffels, who put out a statement as well. Over the last 2 weeks, I have been called that word and the other one thousands of times. I have been getting constantly dead-named and misgendered. I'm being told to unalive myself. Some people have even threatened to, that word, me. The harassment has been so bad, I've had panic attacks and lost sleep over it. I am terrified of it escalating further, because I know just how far online harassment can go. There is nothing I can do to deal with the transphobic harassment, as Elon Musk removed both deadnaming and misgendering from the terms of service. Similarly, Elon Musk forcing third-party developers to pay for access to the Twitter API, which was previously free, has resulted in all the anti-harassment tools I previously had used to discontinue service. Twitter has become functionally unusable for me, without being inundated with bigotry and threats. I can't handle it anymore. I know that I have my fair share of critics, but no one deserves this. This is just cruel for cruelty's sake. There is no justice behind any of this. Thanks to everyone I've shared laughs with and made friendships with here, I'll keep in touch. Tweets are now protected, of course. I'm blocked. Means sod all to me. Although I should point out, I've never misgendered, never dead-named. I've never gone out of my way to harangue, hassle, harass Keffels in the slightest, in fact. But I'm blocked because I criticised. You are, as you yourself referenced it, not free from criticism or critics. But you yourself, you built a name of harassing others by ratioing them. So this is a fascinating way of you just saying, la 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 la, I can't hear you. I dug a hole, let me pull out all my victim cards and then blame Elon Musk that my victim cards are no longer as effective as they once were. Now, just before we dive into some of the clips doing their rounds on the H3 podcast, El Rev says Desu as well, because watching it all the way through is a ball ache. Look at the contents here. Some of this I don't need, although there is a point worth raising. We'll get to in a second as well, actually. We should quickly look at the statistics, the social blade. Vaush gets fantastic views. I would love to get some of these views. I'm not even joking, just not the controversy that comes with it. But the subscriber growth hasn't been great of late. But because of the size of his channel, and with the response only having just come out, the true impact of what has happened will not be known as whether or not it will be long-term damage or whether it will be something he can simply bounce back from. Although based on the comment section of his video, he has far too many people willing to suck him off even when they themselves concede this reeks of wrong. And while we're at it, actually, here is a recording taken for me, done for me, made for me, of the comment section. Some, yes, do call Vaush out, but there is still a lot of very bad takes and a lot of sucking action. The reason why is because some people will go to bat. They genuinely believe in their messiah in this. Because of the length of the video, it is impossible to be able to go through it all in video form without it taking me over a week, which would never be worth it for the views I get on this channel. Sorry about that, guys. I'm not interested. But what I do want to quickly highlight is this content section here, because this here tells us he's taken the liberty of very kindly categorizing everything. You have numbered clips which are very, very important. These are references to previous engagements with other people and clips that have been considered out of context. One of the problems Vaush has is that is a lot of really irritating clips that have done their rounds because of really crappy situations Vaush has gotten himself into. On their own, which is how they should be tackled, they are quite easy to deal with for Vaush, surely. Yes, absolutely. Right. Anyone else, though, would look at this and say there's a pattern. That pattern is why the internet is quite divided on this. Ignoring the sycophants, those detractors are looking at this and going, no, this is far too coincidental. The Quinky Dink really does have one's noggin jogging. What I found tickle-worthy was, firstly, in this day and age of streaming, you have folders for adult content, categorized, of course, for still image and motion picture. There was somebody on my server that did that. They had it categorized further by year of release and alphabetical, and then by hair color, I believe, as well, and other categories as well for other arbitrary who gives a damn categories. Everyone has a preference. It's not my place to judge. Of course not. But I'm going to judge because I'm a dickhead. So now we should get to some of the comments Vaush has made in his video that I believe are relevant to this discussion.
All I can really say is that I didn't notice the problem while saving the drawings, the same way a person could fail to notice any element of any drawing if they were careless or inattentive or distracted.
Earlier in the week, we did in fact respond to part of Vaush trying to initially explain the Goblin adult content stuff and how you might not notice things for what they are or who drew them for what they draw and so on. The mental gymnastics were quite strong. Here, the excuse is essentially, I just wasn't paying attention. I was just downloading because something vaguely took my interest. For example, as is well known, Vaush likes thick, big peen. Congratulations, I'm so happy for you. There is no excuse, though, for not paying attention to the stuff you choose to download, to save in what can be considered your, and I'm sure many would call it the same, spank bank. Or was that your tax folder? It's so hard to remember these days. It's been a week, and honestly, keeping up with it is a nightmare. Vaush tries to attribute his negligence and ignorance down to one image of Lolicon, which is a load of nonsense because people got the screenshot and it's uncensored all over Twitter. I can't show it here because turns out I have standards. But we do have this grainy image of the folders. Credit where it's due, I guess. You're committed to saving art in all forms. Because what I want to focus my energy on is the direct response to what has happened over the past 2 weeks, we are going to skip to 1 hour, 8 minutes, 10 seconds, the taxes folder, because this is the part I would like to focus my energy on. There is a lot to be said about the earlier content in the video, of course there is, but that is a separate video for another time, or a separate video for someone better to do. I don't care for making grander points, I want to focus on the incident, the isolated incident instead. The grander point is obvious enough without it.
So after all that, now we finally arrive at this most recent drama, the incident that lit a fire under Drama YouTube and is, to my mind, the only thing I've done in the past 4 years that actually looks bad. It's pretty embarrassing to say the least. So there I was, streaming a few weeks ago, browsing a men's fashion site. I wanted to look at an image more closely, so I right-clicked to open the image in a new window, but then accidentally instead clicked the Save As tab in the right-click drop-down menu. You can see this is an example of the kind of structure that I'm referring to. What?
I have to insert that clip, and myself now speaking for fair use purposes. Vaush is, at this point, telling the truth in his story. It is not my place to judge the desire to save images of men's fashion. There's another point there to be made, I'm sure.
Now, because I am, as has been extensively demonstrated in this video, a fucking idiot, my preferred strategy for keeping my desktop clean is to keep a single big folder called To Be Sorted, where every image, document, music file, whatever, I happen to download gets sent. This is an insane thing to have as a live streamer, but, you know, there you go. It's me.
I'm loving this story time. It's like being taken on a Gabby Hanna wild ride.
So I hit save as, and a half second later, a preview window of the folder and its contents popped up on stream. What? And now, of course, that folder had porn in it, so I immediately ended the stream and deleted the VOD, even if it weren't just embarrassing to make a mistake like that as one of the largest political live streamers on the platform. It's TOS. You gotta delete the VOD, so...
To be honest, you're actually quite lucky. You're lucky to have not gotten a community guideline strike, because even if you delete the VOD, there is still access to it on YouTube's end where they could in fact yeet you because of it. Twitch as well. Many platforms do that because they do retain an archive for a time. That, and also the fact that, as you saw, many of us have that little clip, but censored. We don't need to actually see it. It's disgusting enough.
I stream with no delay, and folks are always screen capturing the feed, so I knew the contents of my to be sorted folder and the preview window were irrevocably public knowledge. But to be honest, that didn't really bother me too much.
Yes, that's because you're quite full of yourself. The smart move would have been for you to get ahead of yourself and everyone else by publicly expressing, let's say, guilt at what was in that folder. But you didn't, which is where many people's anger towards you comes from. There is still a considerable amount of divide on the subject of what was in that folder, whether or not it is as bad as people say, whether people should focus their energy on the IRL people who like things like that but in the real world instead. To me, that's a deflection, a distraction. Of course, those issues should be tackled, but in this instance, it's a deflection from what Vaush likes to look at, what Vaush likes to say, what Vaush likes to crack one off to or imagine himself as part of.
It was embarrassing, sure, but mostly because it made me look like a careless idiot, not because I was ashamed of the, like, furry, demon, monster, GF, big porn stuff I knew I had in there. You know, I had rambled about liking all that stuff on stream before, not a secret, and I thought, you know, maybe, in a way, this up would come across kind of charming.
That might be where your big mistake, if we had to take it at face value, is then. You assumed wrong when it came to the internet and the internet's power of doing their due diligence to find out what the art actually was. Your negligence and failing to understand internet. Your critics will dive into everything to have valid points of criticism against you. This dismissive attitude does not help. It, of course, placates those that support you who might be on the fence. Not many of those. You still have a resounding amount of likes on this video. But in the political landscape where you yourself identify yourself as one of the biggest political commentators, you know better, or should know better when it comes to optics, how bad this will look regardless.
You know, like, that's my streamer, that idiot right there. My community was already making a big joke of it by the time I went live again. Of course, I knew as soon as the folder opened on stream that it would be pretty easy for people to lie about what it contained, to stir up drama or cause me trouble or for any other reason. So when later on in that stream, one or two people came into chat and they said, hey, there was lolly in there, you know, I figured they were just causing trouble and I banned them.
Like a good political commentator, you silence dissenting perspectives on what they saw in that folder. This debate over what was in the folder, you and I, Vaush, both know you can't weasel your way out of what was actually seen. Some have said, but the context is the character is thousands of years old, but cursed into a child's body. Okay, thank you for that. So what you're telling me is, child still drawn.
Of course, we know where this is going. By the next day, I had learned from what felt like the entire goddamn internet that two of the images in my folder preview window were actually from a well-known lolicon artist, and therefore definitely intended to be lolly, which has to be the worst possible way to find out about that sort of thing. Now, obviously, the accusation here isn't just that I had those images saved. That part's true, not really an accusation, but also that I must have known that they were lolicon and saved them because they were lolicon.
If we had to treat this as just that, those two particular ways of looking at it, you are going to have a very hard time proving otherwise. The same can be said for those proving that it is true. For those that are on the internet, they will use all the previous clips you had to go through in your video against you to say this has happened too many times for you to be this stupid. And at this point, it is an impressive level of stupidity that one of the biggest political commentators on the platform can't stop doing and saying stupid crap that gets taken out of context as you yourself reference, or gets used against you because of your folders involving children one too many times. And as a political commentator, you would surely realize that regardless of ample context for each individual instance, which is how all should be treated, too many have lined up now for you to be able to downplay it with the card of ignorance, which is why so many detractors on the internet do not buy what you are now trying to sell.
Now, the obvious and predictable but nonetheless true response from me is that no, I didn't know that, and that must not have been the impression I got from those two drawings, because if I had gotten that impression, then I wouldn't have saved them, you know. Drawings are abstractions, and art styles and body proportions vary massively, even for characters that are unambiguously adults. That doesn't mean lolly isn't a thing.
I'm not going to deny, when I saw the uncensored version of your folder, it was the impression I got. I'm not big on anime, not big on any of that art style at all, really. But that's a personal preference. I'm not into manga. I don't read all that stuff either. I don't watch anime. I don't do anything in this ballpark. Whenever I've been asked what I thought about lolly, I've always said the same thing. Why does it even need to exist? I have questions that concern the artist, mostly. We know you have certain preferences. We've covered it in previous videos where you've spoken about what you are quite fond of. In this, the only way you can downplay with the card of ignorance is if you didn't actually look at the full-size image and used a tiny thumbnail that you saw without your glasses on. Even then, it's still not an excuse.
Or a problem. I've bitched about it being a problem like a lot on stream. It just means that carelessly or inattentively failing to notice it isn't exactly impossible. Yeah, I know what some people are going to say, you know, no, you must have known. There's no way you didn't know. And like what am I going to do? Make a evidentiary argument here? You know, like, I'm not putting up the images so we can argue about the pixels or the proportions or whatever.
You're right, this would be a bad idea. For a number of reasons. Firstly, it would be a violation of TOS. Second, because there is no version of a reality where you can actually make that work in the online space and look good at the same time. As we're gearing up for election season, one of the biggest political commentators, streamers on the platform would want to do his best to promote the party he loves the most. In this very video, you do in fact talk about politics a bit. Doesn't help you really, does it? But for somebody that knows politics, I still don't get how you don't understand optics. Because while I'm not here to give you a solution, you would think your solution would be better than to take a week to come up with a solution of ignorance.
I know fully well that like 99.9% of people who have heard about this drama haven't seen the images, nor do I think those people should go looking for them, obviously. So it's pretty much entirely a take me at my word or don't kind of situation where people are free to lie about the drawings, or, as I've already seen on Twitter, just post other really bad looking shit and say that's what I had in my folder. There's not much I can do about it.
When it comes to the discussion of you refuting claims against you, you are using the argument of, without any evidence, take my word for it, and ignorance. With any level of skepticism, this cannot stand. That's for anyone that wants to look at this with any critical thought. And critical thought is vital to the online space and discourse. Many of us have seen those images because they were doing their rounds on Twitter, and yes, we knew which ones were the ones that were faked. I say we, I'm not the only person that saw the fake ones as well, along with the memes of your head on a horse's body, as opposed to some kind of centaur, which would make more sense. If people blindly just listen to you in this without any evidence, you are not refuting anything. You are using an hour and 40 minutes to talk and waffle and prattle while providing nothing to refute what you are claiming. How do you prove ignorance, though? Now that's a really interesting question.
It's all totally unfalsifiable, and people are going to make whatever assumptions and inferences they want to make. All I can really say is that I didn't notice the problem while saving the drawings, the same way a person could fail to notice any element of any drawing if they were careless or inattentive or distracted.
Careless, inattentive, distracted. What an interesting choice of words there, Vaush. I know in your comments there were many that said, I can't wait for people to clip you out of context and use it to drive home wider points to drop that subscriber count even further. Those 3 words do it well on their own.
Chat also pretty much immediately clocked 2 other drawings in the folder preview window as being AI art, something else I didn't notice, and they gave me plenty of shit for that too, because I'm not a big fan of AI art.
I'm kind of curious. Firstly, I don't care about AI art in the slightest. I have no real vested interest in that, although I've heard much in the way of potential legal lawsuit stuff concerning Taylor Swift's deepfake stuff. The AI stuff aside, you were accused of having lolicon on your computer and you banned some people who pointed it out to you for you to then later find out there might be some truth to that. Did you unban them?
Yeah, I think I've done a good job of demonstrating a tendency towards carelessness, if nothing else.
If that is to be believed, you wouldn't need to make a 1 hour 44-minute video, would you? You could just sit in front of the camera with a dunce hat and say nothing for about 15 to 20 seconds. Maybe suck on your thumb while you're at it. I saw a few people stream and cover this. Chud Logic was one of them, and the prevailing argument presented by Chud was, I'm not buying this. This doesn't float, it doesn't work, it doesn't sync, it isn't true.
So, leaving that stupid, least charitable argument aside, someone might then ask, okay, I get it, it's possible to make a mistake like that. Why then would you save the images? And what about them did you like? And look, there's really no way of saying this without sounding crass or flippant or whatever, but, you know, it's already a pretty revealing video. There's actually a very clear and simple explanation for why, for not just those 2 drawings, but in fact all the drawings in that folder generally. And it's an explanation that is extremely well known and well substantiated. I'm a size queen. I like big things.
So we've moved on from ignorance to size queen. Okay, this is quite interesting because how can you now feign ignorance whilst claiming also knowingly downloading something you must have seen enough of, size-wise, to be able to gauge whether or not it was remotely appropriate to then download it? So does the ignorance argument hold up with that additional context? The answer to that should be a resounding no, by the way.
Yeah, I was looking through drawn porn like furry or hentai or whatever else. I saw big well-drawn dicks. I thought, cool, and saved the drawings, then never looked at them again, as evidenced by the fact they are in a big dump folder literally called to be sorted. That's, that's the extent of the consideration that I gave those 2 drawings before my community and then the entire internet hopefully corrected my mistake. It's hard to even say anything about it. 5 seconds of
If that's what they did in the instance that the images were seen, after you then removed the VOD from the internet, what was the past week then? A lot of creators would ordinarily go on damage control, but you didn't have to, because others decided to take the fall for you while you were busy conjuring up this video. And by that I mean you had, without obviously endorsing it, I don't recall seeing you anywhere saying you endorsed it, Keffels and Tipster deciding to go to bat for you by then deciding to make this into a wider issue and distracting and trying to distract the internet from you. Because from where I'm sitting at my desk, it looks more like you put your head in the sand or believed yourself above it for a time, perhaps thinking that if enough blowed over, time passed as it were, you would be able to continue without much in the way of conversation about this, like every other time you've been called out for inappropriate comments you've made.
I wish I had an answer that was more satisfying, but really for something like this, I feel like people are going to believe what they believe. I do think there is a real argument to be made about carelessness, especially with regard to lolicon and its seeming omnipresence in the anime community. You don't have to know much about anime to know that's an issue with it. I find it repellent, and I've been bitching about it for years. Plenty of that bitching has been on stream too. But it's possible to find something repellent while also not being perfectly vigilant about it, especially in art where stylization and abstraction can kind of, cloud awareness and judgment of the extent to which any artists you follow or people in the community might be doing sussy shit, right?
Clearly then, what you need to do is take a page out of Tipster's book and in video form, take your anime and put it individually into bin. Then tell your respective partner anime is banned from the home, the hoose as it were. Or, regardless of highlighting a legitimate issue within the anime community, accept that your preferences, your negligence, your size queen doesn't stack up to any scrutiny because you have an issue you need to actually try and find a way to tackle without trying to make it seem like you're stupid, but simultaneously not. Although if you are ignorant and a size queen, but the ignorance part especially, it does raise a number of questions about you as a political commentator. It does explain a bias though, I guess.
Pardon me for taking my most indefensible position yet on this, in this video. In the history of my channel, I actually do like some anime, and there's a lot of really good shit out there in the anime community broadly, and in a lot of the sick anime babes getting railed on Twitter. I'm sorry, like often that is also cool.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on that one. But only because I am, as is well known, an asexual Amish individual. And that stuff to me is absolutely haram.
And I hate the fact that, the pervasiveness of lolicon means that the entire community is tainted, basically, right? I don't like the fact that, like, you could be looking through what looks like a bunch of totally, like, normal, fine, cool babes getting railed by big dicks, whatever you're into, while also feeling like you have to be vigilant that in this incredibly normalized process, some of these drawings might be of characters that are canonically underage.
You realize you're inserting another excuse here now. I just want to be lazy, let me be lazy, right? Surely you realize that. Because you should be vigilant in all walks of life. 100% you should. There are going to be some that will do this, and do it to try you, tease you, tempt you. It is down to you and every other individual to be vigilant at all times.
Or that, like, an artist who generally draws in a kind of like cartoony style might be fine, but then another artist does that, but then they're like actually drawing like they're meant to be teenagers or whatever. I don't like it. And it's a normalization issue, and I think one of the best ways you could deal with it is by being aware. I'm not perfectly aware, so I f***ed up. This wasn't the first time that I f***ed up in this specific regard. After the whole child labor argument saga, people went through a bunch of likes in an old public Twitter or porn account that I had.
Yeah, this is the part where you might be forgetting how the internet works. The internet is forever, so you even deleting your VOD means sod all really. The internet will weaponize against you when it comes to anything pertaining to children. Anything, no matter the context, regardless if they like you or hate you. The internet will find everything on you. The child labor stuff that you've gone through in this video will bite you for the rest of your political commentary career. It is why, while you are one of the biggest, you are also one of the most heavily criticized. There are many in fact on social media who don't believe you should be a political commentator because you are harmful to a party you would support. Poisoning the well is quite common as a tactic. Optics, though, is a game with sound bites, especially that politics, you should know, resides around.
And over like thousands of liked, furry, big dick monster girl images or whatever, I think they found one that was like the character was meant to be a teenager, and it's not surprising to me that might happen because, I'm running between classes, scrolling on my phone. I look at an image maybe 2 or 3 seconds before I like. The degree of scrutiny required there indicates that this goes beyond some kind of like matter of personal temperance and extends broadly into like, how weird is it that that's something that's been that normalized?
I am getting a headache from the mental gymnastics presented to use laziness and carelessness, it's ignorance, to explain why you like what you like, and also get annoyed that the internet really is very internet. There's another word for it, I can't use it in the video, this video that is, starts with an A, U, T, keep going, because it's very internet to go and look at everything about you. It's very politics as well, oddly enough. They drag everything up from your past. You know this because of your comments about Trump. All his past has been laid bare for everyone. You've commented on a lot of it to make broader points now, but now the scrutiny's on you. No, don't do that. I'm just being ignorant, careless, lazy. The usual standard stuff.
Anyway, I don't mean to like make a big point or make it like a broader issue.
As we've seen from Tipster and Keffels this week, when you do that, people realize you are trying to deflect. but also draw attention to something else as a wider issue instead of what it really is, and that is a local issue. You can think global all you like, but act local. In this though, you should act local whilst thinking local. Your preferences, your downloads, your history are against you, the individual, and that is how it should be treated. Your comments, how you handle it. I may have started with Tipster and Keffels' statements, but really we don't have to continue talking about them in this. The onus is on you for what you've decided to do and how you've decided to handle it. Your broader point, as I mentioned earlier, is a deflection and a distraction.
I just think it's a broader issue, you know? People are going to say what they're going to say. They can judge me for what they're going to judge me for. I think a lot of people have been real and charitable. I think it's insane to say this, like, yeah, it's a file, you got him. I think that's insane, but again, it's not really an evidentiary argument that I can make, so, what am I supposed to do?
We're not the problem solvers in this one, Vaush. What are you supposed to do is on you to resolve, you to work out, you to find out, because we're not here to help you as a creator. We're here to hold you to account, and you are dismissing the criticism and then saying, well, what am I supposed to do? Many people who've criticized you have offered solutions. They really have, but you believe yourself above a lot of that. Not surprising, while your subscriber count is still in the diminishing area, you still hold considerable sway and have a large audience. I'll be intrigued to see how this handles, how you continue to succeed as a creator going forward, given enough time passing.
So, yeah, that's the long and short of it. I'm sure there are other clips or screenshots or arguments out there that people have thrown into their big anti-me documents, but like I said, I wanted to focus on the accusations that I feel are at least somewhat grounded.
In this section, the tax folder segment of your video, you've addressed it by using ignorance and carelessness and laziness owing to a lack of willingness to be vigilant as your reasoning for what you had, which no one that commentates against you because they're obviously anti-Vaush are going to buy. Many of your audience do buy it because they're willing to give you a chance, knowing that you have in previous segments explained, charitably, I'll use that word, each individual instance of a clip or thing you have said being used against you to portray or paint a larger point about you, because this is your big refutal debunking of all of that. I am not as convinced, and I wasted nearly 2 hours of my life watching all of that. I should have sped it up, quite frankly. But as is typical of the online space, if you don't agree with that, you, my lovely audience, and anyone else that sees this, that's fine. We can agree to disagree, quite frankly. I'm not asking for Vaush to get arrested or anything. I just think Vaush needs help.
If I took the time to tackle all the obviously fake or disingenuous, we'd be here forever, and I think it would take away from the stuff I actually did feel I needed to address. Again, walking that line, there is a lot of, but I don't want to convey the impression that I feel every attack against me is illegitimate, or at least not properly motivated.
Then herein lies the larger problem. Because you aren't going to go through all of them, maybe do it on Twitter or something where it might be able to get through their system, you are not adequately debunking anything. You are not properly explaining anything either. You are trying to make it seem like you are by using a very politician interpretation. And by that I mean you are kind of not answering any of the questions raised against you, but you are-ish enough that it could seem to a more casual viewer like you are properly refuting everything. None of what you said holds up. Straight up, Vaush, nothing holds up. And if, when I suggest you go to Twitter, you did decide then to use the images that are fake and say, this is fake, I don't have this, these are fake, that would actually help you more than anything else. I'm not going to provide you with a solution how to actually tackle this beyond that, because I think you should have done that a week ago, quite frankly. This measured response, which is what it's typically known as, hasn't done anything really to help you. And I'm not buying anything you say about what you have in that folder, or why it was in that folder in the first place. Your larger complaint about anime is a separate issue entirely, because you still downloaded the images regardless, and you didn't pay attention, apparently, while also paying enough attention to notice the big peen. Okay. This makes perfect sense, Vaush. Totally.